Today, Cryptocurrency Academy tells the story of Stellar Lumens, XLM, in the most human way possible. Through real life, through price, and through those moments when people change overnight just because a chart moves. Stellar wasn't born to be a joke. It was born from a very real frustration. Money moving across borders is slow, expensive, and sometimes cruel to ordinary people. You send a few $100s back home and fees take a bite. You wait days and worry. You call to ask and you feel powerless. And then some people look at that powerlessness and ask, why can't we make it lighter? Stellar started from that question. It sounds simple, but it touches something massive, the payment rails of the world. Crypto Explained is the lens here, price and human behavior, not technical buzzwords. In Queens, New York, there's a woman who does accounting for a small import-export business. Every week, she processes international transfers, and she hates the feeling of doing everything right and still getting eaten by fees. She hears about Stellar as a strange but clear idea. Build a network that lets institutions and people move value faster and cheaper. She doesn't need to understand the algorithm. She sees one thing: if this works, it's not just a coin, it's a railway. But crypto back then was a loud market. People loved the projects that screamed. Stellar spoke in a normal voice. And in crypto, speaking normally often means getting ignored. Crypto Explained again. What gets ignored early can become unforgettable later. In Phoenix, Arizona, Derek works a warehouse job and runs delivery at night. He lives paycheck to paycheck. One bad car problem and everything gets tight. Derek isn't dreaming of getting rich. He hates fees and he hates slow, broken systems. On November 1st, 2015, he sees XLM at about $0.002128. He buys 80,000 XLM at a buy price of $0.002128 per XLM. His total cost is calculated as 80,000 times 0.002128, and you receive $170.24 as the result. After he buys, there's no fireworks. He feels like he just put money into something painfully quiet, and that quiet is the first trap. 2016 goes by, and Stellar gives Derek no dopamine. He opens the app, and almost nothing explodes. Some nights, he wants to sell just to get it out of his head. But life keeps pulling him. Shifts, deliveries, rent. And sometimes being busy saves you from the biggest mistake, selling just to calm your emotions. Stellar quietly survives through a period when everyone wants fast results. It's like a seed in dry soil, no applause, but not dead. In Houston, Angela works night shifts as a nurse. She hates the feeling of gambling, but she understands how ordinary people suffer when they send money and fees keep shaving it down. She hears about Stellar and she doesn't rush in. She just remembers. There is a project trying to solve a real problem. People like Angela are the base layer of long stories. They don't create instant price explosions, but they create the feeling that this isn't only talk. That's Crypto Explained in real life. Utility doesn't always pump price right away, but it can keep a story alive. In Ohio, Brian is a college student who binge watches 100 times videos. He looks at Stellar and says, "Too slow." He ignores it and buys whatever is hot because he wants quick wins. This is Stellar's early pain. It doesn't cater to the crowd. It doesn't give you instant highs. But markets move in cycles. And in those cycles, the thing you call slow today can become the thing you regret ignoring tomorrow. Crypto Explained. Impatience is expensive. Then 2017 arrives and the air changes. In Miami, Sophia drives Uber and Lyft, and she hears passengers talk about crypto like it's a fever. She hears it at work. She hears it at home. Social media shows profits like trophies. Sophia says it straight. I don't want to be left behind. That fear of being left behind, pulls ordinary people into crypto harder than greed does. When that fear rises, people choose projects that sound respectable to calm themselves. Stellar talks about payments, transfers, low fees. It sounds like real life. And when real life collides with a hot market, it can turn into fire. Crypto Explained. The crowd always arrives right when emotions get dangerous. In Chicago, Marcus is a firefighter. He's disciplined. He doesn't like showing off. He likes plans. On September 1st, 2017, he sees XLM at about $0.02395. He watches the rhythm and senses. People are starting to notice it. Marcus understands. When the crowd arrives, opportunity arrives. But danger arrives too, because the crowd makes people believe price can only go one direction. Crypto explained, the same fuel that lifts you can burn you. Marcus buys 12,000 XLM on September 1st, 2017, at a buy price of $0.02395 per XLM. His upfront cost is calculated as 12,000 times $0.02395, and you receive $287.40 as the result. From then to year-end, Marcus doesn't brag. He just watches XLM climb, and his heart beats faster each time the chart jumps. On December 31st, 2017, XLM rises to $0.3608. Marcus sits at his kitchen table, thinking about the credit card balance hanging over him, the car expense, the feeling of being pressed down every month while pretending everything is fine. Then he does what very few people can do while euphoric. He decides to sell everything that same day. Marcus sells 12,000 XLM at a sell price of $0.3608 per XLM. The amount he takes home is calculated as 12,000 times 0.3608, and you receive $4,329.60. His profit is calculated as $4,329.60 minus $287.40, and you receive $4,042.20. Marcus freezes for a few seconds, hands shaking, not from fear, but from release. I just cut the rope that tightens around my neck every month. That night, he pays off the credit card, keeps a small emergency cushion, shuts the phone off, and sleeps deeply for the first time in months, because he just bought something rare: peace of mind. Crypto explained, winning is only real when it becomes life. In New Jersey, Rachel is a teacher. She doesn't think she's the crypto type, but 2017 turns every conversation into price. She sees people brag about gains, sees coworkers debating, sees students ask, "Did you buy?" And once she starts checking charts every day, she learns the real cost of crypto isn't always money. It's your mind. You eat dinner while glancing at your phone. You go to bed thinking, "What will it do tonight?" At that point, Stellar doesn't need to say anything. Price movement alone is enough to pull people around. Crypto explained, attention is a drug. Derek is the kind of guy who almost forgot XLM even existed. But at the end of 2017, one night after a delivery shift, the air is cold and his car rattles like it's about to fall apart. He walks into the living room and sees a missed call from his mom. He calls back and hears a sentence that makes his chest drop. "Next week I have a checkup. I'm short on my medicine money." Derek hangs up, sits alone, and on instinct opens the crypto app he hasn't looked at closely in a long time. On December 31st, 2017, XLM shows $0.3608. Derek doesn't let emotion drag him too far. He thinks about his mom, his car, and those small debts that don't sound big until they steal your sleep. Then he makes a very human decision. He sells 50,000 XLM that same night at a sell price of $0.3608 per XLM. The cash he receives is calculated as 50,000 times 0.3608, and you receive $18,040. The original cost for those 50,000 XLM on November 1st, 2015 is calculated as 50,000 times 0.002128, and you receive $106.40. Derek's realized profit is calculated as $18,040 minus $106.40, and you receive $17,933.60. He stares at the number and can't speak. The next morning, he takes the car to the garage and fixes it properly, pays off the small debt that kept him on edge, and sends his mom enough money so she can buy medicine and go to the appointment without fear. That night, Derek looks in the mirror. Same face, different feeling. Not rich, but finally able to hold his head up. He keeps the remaining 30,000 XLM as a reminder. He survived the silence, and he refuses to let a win turn into blind greed. Crypto explained, the real win is relief. Looking back at 2014 through 2017, XLM isn't just a project history. It's an emotional curve for ordinary people. It starts with a real-life problem, cross-border transfers that are slow and expensive, then moves through years of being ignored because it doesn't give instant highs, and then erupts in 2017 when attention and capital collide. Two examples are enough to show the drama. Marcus sells to buy peace. Derek sells to create a real turning point in his life. And the most important lesson is this: the market doesn't test you when you know theory. The market tests you when your heart is racing, when the number looks too beautiful, when you start believing you can't be wrong. Stellar steps into the spotlight at the end of 2017, bright, beautiful, and full of traps, because the moment you believe you're right, the market often asks the hardest question: can you turn a win into a better life, or will you let greed drag you far enough to lose it all? Crypto explained. That question is the whole game. After the late 2017 fireworks, the market steps into 2018 with a very real vibe. Everyone thinks they're smarter than reality. XLM gets attention and gets inflated at the same time, and that attention is a double-edged blade. You watch price run, and your heart runs with it. You start believing this can't possibly turn around. But the crypto market is fair in a brutal way. It lets you be right long enough to get confident, then it snaps the wheel when you relax. XLM follows that script. And when the euphoria fades, what's left isn't the chart, it's people. People who can't sleep, people arguing at home, people staring at their balance and learning a bitter truth. Inside crypto, belief has no seatbelt. Crypto explained, the market doesn't just move numbers, it moves emotions. In early 2018, XLM reaches levels that make people dizzy. Here's a clean reference point. January 3rd, 2018, XLM is around $0.8962. It sounds like a life-changing chance, but it's also peak expectations. And after peak expectations often comes peak disappointment. The scariest thing isn't price going down, it's what happens to the buyer's mind. You buy while the crowd is cheering, then you get trapped while the crowd goes quiet. As price starts sliding, everything changes fast. Group chats get quieter, posts get less confident, and the line, "it'll bounce soon," turns into, "I don't want to look anymore." This is when crypto starts teaching the lesson nobody wants. Crypto explained, crowds are loud at the top and silent on the way down. In Seattle, Kevin is an IT engineer at a small company. He doesn't like the all-in style. He prefers something with a real-world use story. By April 1st, 2018, XLM is around $0.2066. The price is no longer insane like the start of the year, but it's still hot enough for a wave. Kevin decides to buy 20,000 XLM at a buy price of $0.2066 per XLM. His upfront cost is calculated as 20,000 times 0.2066, and you put in $4,132. It's not a get-rich number, but it's enough for Kevin to be on the field without harming his life. And the key thing? Kevin sets a very real rule. If you win, you turn it into real money, not into fantasy. Crypto explained, discipline beats dopamine. Summer 2018 feels tired and hopeful at the same time. News about partners, payment systems, and networks starts showing up more often. Then one moment hits. IBM's blockchain payments initiative, WorldWire, is announced publicly as running on Stellar. Information that makes many people instantly think, okay, this is serious. On September 4th, 2018, XLM is around $0.2313. It's not a crazy pump, but it's enough to make holders feel, I have a reason to believe. Kevin watches that rise and sees the truth. A news wave can give you an opportunity, but it can also trick you into staying too long, and you pay for it with a long winter. Crypto explained. Headlines can lift price, but they can also hypnotize you. Kevin doesn't wait for to the moon. He decides to sell all 20,000 XLM on September 4th, 2018, at a sell price of $0.2313 per XLM. The proceeds are calculated as 20,000 times 0.2313, and you receive $4,626. Kevin's profit is calculated as $4,626 minus $4,132, and you receive $494. Some people would laugh and say, that's tiny. Kevin smiles and says, no, this is clean profit. Because what he buys isn't only $494. He buys the feeling of controlling the decision instead of letting the chart control him. He uses that profit to cover part of a skill-up course, something that increases his salary a few months later. Not flashy, not braggy, but extremely valuable. Crypto serves life, not life serving crypto. Crypto explained, small wins can be life wins. Then the market does what it always does. It tests belief. By late 2018, the mood shifts from waiting for a bounce to enduring. A clear point, December 15th, 2018, XLM is around $0.09544. This is the kind of price that hurts because it says it plainly. The crowd left. You look at the chart and see the truth. Promises can't hold price if capital is gone. And in this period, there's a very common kind of failure. People don't sell because of hope. Then they can't sell because they're afraid to admit they were wrong. And finally, they end up in whatever mode while bleeding inside every day. Crypto doesn't kill you with one knife. It kills you with 1,000 small cuts. Crypto explained, pain is slow, not sudden. 2019 arrives with bounces. Not because anyone is kind, but because markets run in cycles. You see XLM lift up, then slip again, like someone trying to climb out of the water while waves keep slapping their face. For example, March 18th, 2019, XLM is around $0.1159. It sounds like, it's back, but for people who bought the top, it's still a wound. For people who bought lower, it's a breath. The same green candle gives one person hope and another person despair, because they stand at different buy prices. That's why the most important skill isn't charting, it's emotion management. Crypto explained, the chart is public, your psychology is private. At this stage, survivors often split into two groups. Group 1, less dreaming, more realism. Group 2, still dreaming, but dreaming quietly. X. LM is the same. It doesn't die, it just gets quieter. The project keeps talking about payments, about being a bridge, about simplicity so institutions can actually use it. But the market doesn't reward vision every day. The market rewards vision only when it meets the right season. And 2019 isn't that season. 2019 is training year. You learn how to look at an asset without letting it control your mood. Crypto explained, patience is a muscle. Then 2020 hits like an icy slap. The world enters a crisis, and financial markets shake like a frightened flock of birds. Crypto doesn't get a free pass. There are days you open the chart and don't believe your eyes because everything turns red at once. A clear point, March 13th, 2020, XLM is around $0.03953. This is the kind of price that makes people shut the phone off because looking only hurts. But exactly in days like this, the calmest people begin to see what the crowd can't. When fear peaks, opportunity is often under the bottom. Cold, emotionless, but real. Crypto explained, the bottom is loud inside your head, not on the chart. In Tampa, Florida, Melissa is a retail store manager. COVID hits revenue hard, and she has to count every dollar. She doesn't like crypto because it feels crazy, but she also understands one thing. Panic can create prices you'll regret being too scared to touch. On March 13, 2020, Melissa sees XLM around $0.03953. She chooses an amount that won't break her family finances. She buys 60,000 XELM at a buy price of $0.03953 per XELM. Her upfront cost is calculated as 60,000 times 0.03953, and you put in $2,371.8. After she clicks buy, Melissa doesn't feel happy. Her hands shake a little, but she reminds herself, "I'm not buying from greed. I'm buying because I have a plan." Crypto explained, "Courage is quiet." By late 2020, the market starts heating up again. News, capital, and attention return like a seasonal wind. And there's a day XLM pops and surprises people. November 24, 2020. XLM is around $0.1955. Melissa looks at the chart and feels something strange, excited and afraid at the same time, like standing on a big wave that's beautiful but can slam you at any second. She doesn't play the game of just a little more. She decides to sell all 60,000 XLM that same day at a sell price of $0.1955 per XLM. The proceeds are calculated as 60,000 times 0.1955, and you receive $11,730. Her profit is calculated as $11,730 minus $2,371.8, and you receive $9,358.2. Melissa stares at the money and breaks down crying in the kitchen. Not because she's rich, because for the first time after a brutal year, she can pay off a high-interest debt, build an emergency fund, and buy her child a laptop for online school without borrowing. In that moment, XLM isn't a coin. It's a deep exhale, Crypto explained. The win becomes real when life changes. The 2018 to 2020 period for XLM is a test that says, "I will crush you if you only know how to dream." From the high zones in early 2018 to the cold winter of late 2018, to the choppy bounces of 2019, to the crash during the 2020 crisis, everything carries the same message. Crypto doesn't reward blind belief, it rewards discipline. Kevin wins not because the profit is huge, but because he locks it and upgrades his life. Melissa wins not because of luck, but because she buys while afraid and sells when greed starts whispering. In crypto, you don't need to win every time. You only need to win the times big enough to lift your life one level, and then protect that level. Because a win that never becomes real life eventually becomes a regret story. Crypto explained, "Protect the progress." And then the market walks into 2021 like a door getting kicked open. Not a gentle knock. Kicked open. Phones light up non-stop, notifications jump around. Everyone talks about opportunity. Everyone talks about the future. Everyone talks like tomorrow they'll become a legend. XLM feels like a spring that's been compressed for a long time, quiet. Then it snaps upward. But what's interesting about XLM is it isn't lifted by emotion alone. It's also lifted by a very real story. Fast, cheap, cross-border value transfer. Sounds simple, but simple and actually workable is exactly what makes people curious. And when curiosity meets FOMO, price starts running like it's chasing the last train. Some days, XLM moves like a broken elevator. Every floor is a jolt. Strong hearts laugh. Weak hearts sweat. And the crowd? The crowd watches and jumps in at the most dangerous moment. Crypto explained, "Speed doesn't just happen on the chart, it happens in the mind." Here's the truth. Crypto rarely gives you a normal feeling. It gives you everything or nothing, especially in early 2021. XLM is the same. People who lived through 2018 to 2020 look at 2021 and think, "Oh, this show again." But new people don't know. They only see green, and they believe green lasts forever. The problem is, the market always teaches a lesson, and it teaches fast. XLM has beautiful surges, and it has drops that make people go silent. Not slow drops, power outage drops. You're up, you turn to pour water, you turn back, and the profit becomes break-even, then becomes loss. In this environment, anyone who understands what they're doing survives. Anyone who only runs after cheering gets thrown off the train sooner or later. Crypto explained. The loudest voice is usually the most expensive one. In Tampa, Florida, Ethan works electrical maintenance, a very practical American type. Not many words, not many fantasies, money earned by sweat. But in early 2021, he looks at XLM and says one line, "This looks usable." No show, no bragging online. He just opens the app, taps buy, and takes responsibility for that tap. On February 1st, 2021, XLM is around $0.3218. Ethan buys 15,000 XLM. The cost is 15,000 times 0.3218, so you put in $4,827. Done. No praying, no idolizing, just a cold decision. But the market isn't cold. XLM starts heating up like hot oil, and right as price rises, the most dangerous thing appears. Greed wearing the mask of hope. Crypto explained. Hope is beautiful until it becomes an excuse. By May 16, 2021, XLM climbs to around $0.7143. Ethan sees that number and doesn't play the game of just a little more. He decides to sell part of it, clean and calm. He sells 8,000 XLM. The proceeds are 8,000 times 0.7143. So you receive $5,714.4. Then he sits down and exhales. In crypto, that exhale is rare. The cost for those 8,000 XLM was 8,000 times 0.3218. So you put in $2,574.4. Profit for this portion is $5,714.4 minus $2,574.4. So you receive $3,140. It doesn't sound like millionaire money, but for Ethan, it changes the rhythm of life. 1 month of rent, 1 car repair without begging for extra time, 1 bill he'd been delaying. And the biggest feeling isn't profit, it's that he's holding the steering wheel. Crypto explained, control is the real luxury. Ethan still has 7,000 XLM in his wallet, and the market does what it loves to do. It gives you the feeling you're about to get rich again, then it throws cold water on you. In the weeks after, XLM stops flying. It shakes. It jerks. It makes people doubt themselves. Some days, Ethan opens the app during lunch, sees red, says nothing, just stares longer than usual. Then one day, he tells himself, "I already won a round. Don't turn a win into a loss." On September 6th, 2021, XLM is around $0.4234. Ethan decides to sell the remaining 7,000 XLM. Proceeds are 7,000 times 0.4234, so you receive $2,963.8. The cost for that remaining portion was 7,000 times 0.3218, so you put in $2,252.6. Profit is $2,963.8 minus $2,252.6, so you receive $711.2. Across both sales, Ethan receives $8,678.2. Subtract the total cost of $4,827, and he receives $3,851.2 in profit. He doesn't shout. He calls his wife and says softly, "I just paid off the credit card." Silence for a few seconds. Then, on the other end, she cries. Not because they're rich, because they can breathe. Crypto explained, the best win is relief. That's volatility in real life, not volatility for entertainment. Volatility that teaches you what money actually means. But the market doesn't stop at 2021. It has another chapter, and that chapter is brutal. 2022 arrives like a cold wind. It doesn't ask if you have a jacket, it just blows. Many people who entered late, who bought the top because they listened to someone else, fall into silence. Silence in group chats, silence on social media, silence inside their own homes because they don't want anyone to know how stupid they feel. XLM gets pulled down with the whole market. And that's when you see who truly believes in utility and who only believes in green candles. Crypto explained, a bear market is a truth serum. Let's be blunt, 2022 is a cleansing year. Projects that talk well but build poorly get exposed. Shiny promises get peeled apart. And coins with a clearer use story, even while price falls, still have a quiet group watching. XLM sits in that category. Because at its core, Stellar isn't trying to become a virtual world. It's trying to do one very specific thing: reduce the cost of moving value and act as a bridge between digital money and real life. In fearful markets, a real-life story sometimes keeps people from leaving. Fast and cheap cross-border transfer is a real need. And when real need meets cheap prices, some people start acting, not loud, not braggy. They act like Ethan did. Tap the button and own the consequence. Crypto explained, real conviction is quiet. In Phoenix, Arizona, Rachel works night shifts as a nurse. Pressure, no sleep, and one weight on her shoulders. Her mother in Mexico needs medicine money regularly. Before, sending money meant higher fees, longer waits, and frustration. Rachel doesn't like crypto because it smells like risk. But one day a friend explains it simply. You don't have to like crypto. You only have to understand it can do the job faster. Rachel starts seeing XLM as a tool, not a lottery ticket. On June 18, 2022, XLM is around $0.1078. Rachel buys 60,000 XLM. The cost is 60,000 times 0.1078. So you put in $6,468. For a nurse, where $6,868 isn't pocket change. It's a serious decision. She doesn't buy to show off. She buys because she believes, if this survives the winter, it will have a warmer day. Crypto explained, tools don't need hype, they need purpose. Then 2023 arrives, not a bull run like 2021, but an annoying, uneven recovery with a pulse. Like someone getting up after being sick. They can walk, but they can't run yet. This phase destroys patience. People want an explosion. The market gives them slow. Rachel is different. Night shifts teach her to wait for test results, to wait for a patient to stabilize, to wait for danger to pass. She looks at XLM and says, slow is fine, as long as we're moving. And when emotion starts whispering, greed a little more, she returns to the simplest question, what is my real-life goal? Crypto explained, your plan must be louder than your feelings. On July 13, 2023, XLM is around $0.1549. Rachel sees that number and decides to sell. All of it. No dragging it out. She sells 60,000 XLM. Proceeds are 60,000 times 0.1549. So you receive $9,294. Her total cost was $6,468. Profit is $9,294 minus $6,468. So you receive $2,826. Some people would mock it. Only $2,826? Rachel smiles, because $2,826 means paying down student debt, 1 month of less stress over bills, and a flight to see her mother without counting every dollar. Crypto explained, profit is measured in peace. And this is the real release. Rachel doesn't use that profit to buy something to flex online. She does something simple, but huge for her. She prepays 1 extra month of rent. Then she books a plane ticket. She goes to Mexico. No warning. Her mother opens the door and sees her daughter standing there with a small gift bag, eyes red from night shifts, and Rachel says one line, I'm okay now. Her mother doesn't understand what XLM is. She doesn't need to. What she understands is, her daughter is suffering less. And sometimes the value of profit isn't the number. It's the feeling that you pulled your family out of a little pressure. Some people profit for likes. Some people profit to breathe. Rachel is the second kind. Crypto explained, the best flex is less pain. Looking back, XLM is more a character test than an IQ test. You can be very smart and still lose if you can't control your own tap. You can be very ordinary and still win if you have discipline and you know what you want. Ethan wins because he takes profits and turns a win into lighter life. Rachel wins because she stays patient, keeps a real-life goal, and ends at the right time to protect peace. If stories like this help you, not to dream of instant riches, but to understand how markets move and how emotions pull people, then subscribe to Cryptocurrency Academy, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and comment the next coin you want me to break down in the same style, price, emotion, and real life. Crypto Explained. See you in the next one.